Hi, this is Anthony Parent of IRS Medic. Thank you for joining us again today. I got to say, I'm having so much fun with our rejuvenated podcast that John, and I restarted in June. We're not getting the views that some people would hope for, but I'm telling you, we're getting the right views. We're getting quality. And thank you so much, everyone who's watching and participating, because we're really uncovering a whole bunch of things. This is sort of what I would call the sort of development league where we are. We're developing the ideas to streamline and to bring to the public at large, as our viewers aren't necessarily public at large, but people quite concerned with these insane things that happen and can't really make sense of it. And that's what we're here for. And there's a lot of things that we're going to get to. And today we're going to be talking about something about how the code is quite interesting, and how the IRS code is quite interesting, and how it will call things that aren't the thing, and the things that are the thing, not the thing. And it all depends. We're not sure on what, but sometimes there's things. With me is John Richardson and Keith Redmond. So, John, I have a question. What is going on here?
So what are we talking about? All right, what we're talking about is the treatment of various foreign financial arrangements that you think are trusts, insurance products, whatever, outside the United States. Does the fact that something is called a trust outside the United States make it a trust for US tax purposes? No. Does the fact that it's an insurance policy make it a policy for US insurance? No. Does the fact that it's called a corporation mean it's a corporation for US purposes? No. Okay. Now, moving, and again, now, why do I use the Alice in Wonderland thing? I mean, let's just pause there for a minute. Okay. I mean, look at that. Nothing would be what it is. This is Alice in Wonderland. If I had a world of my own, everything would be nonsense. Nothing would be what it is because everything would be what it isn't. And contrary-wise, what is it? Well, what it is wouldn't be, and what it wouldn't be, it would. You see, I mean, this is almost what this seems like, right? But so, by way of example, Mexican land trust, we've talked about that. It's called a trust. It's not a trust from a US perspective. Move on down. Okay, the Liechtenstein, whatever this thing is, the Liechtenstein Stiftung or whatever it is, okay, Stiftungen, all right, is considered to be a trust, even though the word trust is not even in it, even though it's created under a civil law jurisdiction that doesn't recognize the concept of a trust, right? Okay. So, again, this is the facts and circumstances sort of problem here. So, what you have to do is you have to understand that the definitions come from the Treasury regulations, all right, and, do your best to kind of siphon through that and make a decision. It is unfortunate that tax preparers tend to take what I would call an overly prophylactic approach to this stuff. Well, we're not sure what it is, therefore we might as well file a 3520. Well, listen, I know of a lot of people who got $10,000 penalties on Canadian TFSAs that sure were not foreign trusts, right? So I'd be careful with that. I would be very, very careful with that. And I think that that's the basic summary here. And so I guess bottom line is that people need to not presume they understand how their financial portfolio is affected by the U.S. tax system, but determine what it is they have first. And once they've determined that, then try to make these decisions. Anyway, it's a hugely difficult problem. Also, very important to understand that one of the consequences of something being deemed to be a corporation or a trust is there may very well be income attribution to you, meaning income earned inside the corporation or inside the trust. All right. Well, actually, they're going to say it has to appear in your tax return, even though you never received it. Okay. So, I mean, these are some of the basic problems here.
It's an awful lot, and that's what we're here for. We're coming up. We are developing, and as I said, these podcasts have been incredibly helpful in developing our content and sort of seeing and helping me truly see the landscape of what things are coming. So I really recommend everyone to subscribe to us. We're going to have some exciting things coming up. John and I, Keith and I, we're talking about some really really interesting topics that we're going to address. And I think this is what to give you a little tease of this. John presented me with the theory that the American Revolution was fought so that the U.S. could impose onerous taxation instead of having Britain impose light taxation. That we have everything's exactly backwards, and there is a historical record that would seem to indicate that the first thing America did was try to impose ruinous taxation again and again and again. There were so many rebellions, ultimately leading to the greatest rebellion that nearly destroyed our country. That is the Civil War. So, with that, Keith, would you like to add any final comments about this and advice you would give to anyone who's overseas or anyone with foreign accounts? What advice, anything you could give to them?
Well, just based on the people with who contact me, and a lot of them are just not in the system. And I think it's along the lines of what John's saying. Just do your research, think long and hard, and gather as much information as possible before you take any action. Because the action that you take is not a static one; it's a dynamic one, meaning that that one action you have to do year after year after year, and you just don't know what the repercussions may be. So just be very cautious and and if you do need to, find an appropriate, knowledgeable, savvy tax professional who knows how to deal with Americans overseas. Those are just my gold nuggets of information to pass on.
I think you're absolutely right. Thank you very much for Keith. John, your final words?
Oh, I can understand why people renounce U.S. citizenship.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And I would say the
Because
people
they
that
want to be
did.
in compliance, not because they don't want to be, right? It's so
yeah.
difficult to be in compliance. That's the problem here, right? Oh, I do have one final thought on this, okay? So I think that they went after this guy because of the UBS thing. And I also think that, he was a US resident. And this is one more example of how we see the US attempting to punish residents for these transgressions that sort of filters down to Americans abroad. And, I swear to God, okay, the US has got to end this, the citizenship taxation stuff. It has got to sever citizenship from tax residency because honestly, this is just turning into a farce. Well, it's always been a farce,
It's
but
always
it's
been a farce, but
clearly being recognized as nothing but a ridiculous farce.
and I think the ridiculous penalties, that the farces have always been there. They have always been there. But the amount of damage that this farce is causing to people in the IRS's reputation is just fantastic.
Well, do you think that, do you think people are being forced out of US citizenship because of this stuff?
Oh yeah, definitely,
What
no
do you think,
question.
Keith?
Absolutely, absolutely. They're being forced. It's the only option for many.
Right, and I mean, and we were talking about, and we were just talking about the Froyam decision last week, where the Supreme Court makes a big deal, like, hey, you can't mess with citizenship, but you know what you can do? You can make it so miserable someone has to give up, I guess,
Right.
and so that's
It's
sort
like
of
constructive dismissal in an employment context, right? You want to
yeah,
get rid of an employee, you can't fire him. You just make their working conditions so miserable they're forced out. Everybody recognizes the doctrine of constructive dismissal in an employment context. I mean, I think that there's a clear, what I would call, doctrine of forcing people to renounce U.S. or to use the words in a forium, which speaks of the forcible destruction of citizenship. I think that we can probably agree that we can establish and agree there's a doctrine of the forcible destruction of citizenship, right? That that's coming out of this stuff. I mean, it's simply unbelievable. And
no question about it, no question about it.
and the visible ones are these. I mean, how can you not feel sympathy for Miss Toth, this 82-year-old Boston grandmother who does her taxes from forms of the library? And they want to hit her with what, a 2.7 million FBAR? I mean, are these people out of their minds?
They are.
Yes, yes, yes. The
Yes.
answer, yeah.
I mean, what they should be doing is holding her up as an example of compliance with the law. That's what they should be doing if they want to encourage compliance. But I mean, this whole thing is just, it's operating. It's like a different universe. In fact, before we go to YouTube, Anthony.
All right.
Go to YouTube, and here's what the U.S. tax system is about.
The name of the game is called Thisbin. Oh, look at that. You got another jack. How lucky you are. How wonderful for you. Now, if you didn't get another jack, if you had gotten a king, why, then you'd get another card, except when it's dark, when you'd have to give it back.
If it were dark on Tuesday.
Now, for the last card, we'll call it a kronk. You got that?
What? Oh, I'll get it.